Folks, hello. A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You are very welcome. Delighted to have you with us today, whether you're tuned in on Zoom, indeed, whether you're one of the very first one of our LinkedIn Live attendees, or indeed if you're watching this back afterwards on YouTube. Delighted to welcome you to our session this morning. My name, as an introduction, for those of you who I don't know and haven't met yet, my name is Rob Magee. I'm the CEO at Ingenio, and I'm here today to talk to you about a series of events that we run every week. But we're talking very specifically about a really interesting topic that we've been running over the course of June, which is 5 tips that no one is going to tell you. And we are coming at this from our deep and long and very successful experience in recruitment, very specifically in terms of helping tech, software and SaaS organizations grow and scale. Let's get into the detail of this. And as I said to you, we've been running this series over June. Today, we're talking about, I was doing some preparation for this session last night, and I was really trying to think about, some of the kind of real context that this session contains. And researching a hiring manager and having an impact on a hiring manager in advance of interviewing is probably one of the most powerful and impacting things that you can go and do. In advance of obviously having the interview itself, and as important as maybe researching or preparing how to answer a particular type of question. So really, really important. As you can see there, there's a couple of topics that we've already done, and you can get those on download, and you can see those on YouTube. And there's another couple of sessions that we've got over the next couple of weeks. Again, really, really important high value sessions. And so really, really keen for you to get tuned in and signed up to those sessions. Last year, we built an e-learning course called How to Get Hired. And we basically, in that course, we've a load of different modules and sections. And there's one whole course section on how to research and engage with a hiring manager in advance of interviewing. And look, in terms of today and in terms of this morning, there's 4 key takeaways that I want you to really ram home and make sure that these are habitual tasks and activities for you, particularly when you're interviewing. So, and look, if you've got an interview coming up, these are really, really important for you to go on and put into practice and apply. And if they're not, what I really want to try and get you doing is starting to get yourself comfortable with some of the activities and tasks in here. So the first one is using the tool that I'm talking to you today on, that being LinkedIn, but it's using the platform to really research, to really properly research and then connect with the individual who is ultimately going to be your new boss or your future boss, hopefully. Okay. And why is that important? Well, look, it's really, really important that you understand who that individual is. It's really important that you understand, I guess, the context around, how long have they been in the role in that organization? How did they progress and develop? Did they come into that role from new? Did they go through a kind of a promotional scale? What organizations have they worked with previously? What has their career track and development been? Really, really important on that side of things. The second thing is, it's also really important to be able to, because LinkedIn is a social media platform, it's really important to be able to see what that individual likes and comments on and shares content on, which obviously you've got the facility to be able to see through their activity feed. So, and I'm going to do a live hands-on session right after this slide, just to show you what I mean with that, right? So it's so important that you research and connect with your future hiring manager, effectively the person who's going to be making the decision whether or not they are going to hire you. And by the way, there are also other social media platforms. I think probably Twitter being probably maybe the most relevant business orientated one that you can go and have a look at and see if people's profiles are on there. Again, so that you can get some context around their interests, you know, their beliefs, their cultures, that type of stuff. Okay. The second technique or tactic for researching and subsequently engaging with a hiring manager is to use some of these free video outreach tools that are out there in the market. So, and again, I'm going to show you one example of that. And again, why is that important? So if you think about being in the job application process that you are in, typically what a hiring manager will do, if they're in a large organization, they'll be kind of hidden behind a HR team or an internal recruitment team, or indeed a recruitment agency like ourselves. But and effectively what happens is that your email application, your CV, basically gets sent in through a platform, and then it effectively goes through layers and levels of screening, and then it gets to them. So by the time your CV or your resume potentially hits a hiring manager, it's potentially lost some of the impact that maybe you were hoping for it to have. Okay, and that's why video outreach is really, really important. What this allows you to go and do is it allows you to send your CV or resume to the individual who is going to hire you, and it allows you to put some context around telling your story, so that not only do they have your CV, but they've also then got perhaps a 30-second video of you telling them a little bit about you as an individual, a little bit about your background, and really importantly, why this job is for you, or why it's important to you, or why it's of interest to you. And again, we're going to talk a little bit about that. The third piece I would say to you, really, really important, is try and find a connection. Try and find a way to get to the hiring manager, or get some information or some insight. And clearly, and for those of you who've taken our course, you'll know that I talk all the time about digitally networking with people and with individuals. And it's really, really important that you find some form of connection. And the world has become so small right now, like particularly from a social media perspective, that it's very likely that you won't have to work or look too hard to find someone who maybe knows the individual or is connected to the individual that you're going to go and work for, or maybe is connected to someone who works in the organization that you'd like to go and work for. And that's really, really important. So again, I really want to try and get you tuned into that networking piece. And look, the last piece of advice and help on this one, it's really, really simple, and it's very, very straightforward, but it is amazing how few people really utilize this. And that is being human and asking for help. Okay, so reaching out and asking for help, whether that's to the hiring manager. So that might be saying something like, look, I'm coming in, I'm interviewing for you next week, and I'd love to get your 2 or 3 really key points that you're trying to get out of a good interview, or that you're looking, what's not in the job description that you're really very focused in on for this role. Or maybe it's going to the recruiter or someone in HR and saying, look, can you just tell me a little bit about the process that I'm about to go into? I'm really excited about it. I want to get my prep done, but I want to try and get a little bit more information from you. And again, the more engagement, the more conversation, the more contact and touch points, I think the better you will be there. Or indeed, maybe reaching out to someone who works in that team. So maybe who's going to be a future peer or colleague of yours, or maybe someone who's in that business, to say, look, I'm going for an interview with Rob Magee next week. Really excited about this. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience? How did you get on? How did the interview process work for you? And what are the kind of key tips or recommendations that you would give to someone like me? Okay, so 4 key things that I want you to go and take away that I want you to take away from this session today in terms of researching a hiring manager. That is connecting with them, researching and connecting with them, ideally on LinkedIn and indeed other platforms. Using video outreach, okay, again, might be completely new technique or tactic or even philosophy for you, right? But it's something that I really want to get you tuned into. And Lisa, who works in our team, is an absolute pro and expert on this one. If you want to check her out, she does this stuff weekly on LinkedIn. Number 3, find the connection. You've got to get your private investigator hat on and really try and dig out some form of connection that you can use or leverage to get some insight and information. And lastly, good old-fashioned ask for help. Okay, so let's do an example on this one, right? The example I want to give you is, so these guys are a client of ours, very exciting SaaS organization focused in the MarTech space, a company called Extreme Push. They've got a job on right now, which is an account executive. So that is a sales role working in the sales team, and it's based physically in Dublin, Ireland. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into LinkedIn. Okay, so we start here. This is my own page. This is the free version of LinkedIn. Everyone has access to this. And what I want to start to do is I want to firstly type in Extreme Push. Okay, so I go into the organization and I'm into the company page, Extreme Push's company page. Okay, and you'll see there's loads of information here about these guys. But what am I trying to do here? My objective here is I'm going for an account executive role in the sales team. So what I want to do is I want to figure out, and I've seen a job ad on LinkedIn, I want to figure out who my potential or future hiring manager is going to end up being. Okay, so you'll see here there's 53 employees in that Extreme Push have on LinkedIn. You can see they're all listed out here. Okay, and what I want to go and do now is I want to go and use the tool to filter down people in the sales part of Extreme Push's organization, right? So I'm going to click sales in here, and you can see now what this is doing is it's basically taking me back into effectively a kind of a like a generic search in this one. So now I've kind of said to myself, okay, fine, that's not the way I need to go here. What I need to go and try and do here is get myself back into sales on that side of things. Okay, so we will click sales, and you will now see that I am up here on the top toolbar. You can see that I'm still in the people section. I'm only looking at Extreme Push, so you can see the second green box. Okay, and I'm now filtered down people who have the word sales in their profile, and you can see that we've now dropped from 55 people down to 27. So there's 27 people on LinkedIn who work at Extreme Push who have the word sales in their profile, and you can see straight away Paul Severini. Paul is a VP of sales in North America, but because he's North America, he's not the guy I want. Okay, and I'll scroll down. We can see lots of guys here. So William Hansen, he's new business sales in Ireland. So that's maybe a future peer or colleague of mine. So I would take that profile and I would look at that and say, right, I'm definitely going to do some research on that. I would look at Jack Oliver straight away and I say, okay, that's interesting. Jack is head of sales for EMEA. So he's probably someone who's going to be either my hiring manager or involved in the hiring of me as I go through a process. And I'll keep going down, right? So you can see there, Kimber Whitehead, she's an account manager. So again, she'd be a future peer. There's a few more pages on this. And we have a look down here and we can see, so there's a whole load more very relevant and very appropriate individuals. If I have a look here, you can see Mark Quinn. Mark is a first degree connection of mine because we know these guys very well. We do a lot of recruitment for them. But really importantly, because I'm a first degree connection with Mark, you can see that this contact info box is now opened up as a facility to me. I won't do this here, obviously, live, but because there are personal contact details in behind this. But if I click on contact information, assuming that Mark chooses to put his mobile phone number or his email address up there, I would then have access to that by being a first degree connection. Massively, massively critically important piece of information there that you can go and do to directly engage with someone that you might potentially be working for. I'll keep going. Ross O'Connor, Director of Account Management, maybe not the guy that I want to go and speak to, given that he's on sales. So that's really important. And then really interestingly now, what I've got is I've got Rob Price, who is the Chief Revenue Officer. So again, if I drop into Rob's profile, you can see, again, we're a first degree connection. But I know, because I've researched my market space so incredibly well, that the Chief Revenue Officer is the individual who is absolutely at the top of the sales org. And ultimately, Rob Price will probably end up being my hiring manager and will be making a decision about me. Okay, so you can see there, folks, and what I would be able to go and do very quickly. Sorry, if I just go back into Rob there, what I would very quickly be able to go and do is I can have a look and see about what's in Rob's activity feed. Okay, so you can see here he is sharing and commenting and liking on lots of stuff that are going on that clearly are of interest to him. So when I go into interview with Rob Price, I will definitely want to be talking about some of the things that he is liking, commenting, and sharing on this week, yesterday, today, last week, whatever the case may be. So so valuably important in terms of making sure that your engagement is entirely appropriate and relevant and up to date, and massively important that it has impact. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to just show you is I spoke a little bit about video outreach. By the way, there are loads of tools out there and loads of free tools. And this is the tool that we talk about the most, simply because we use it ourselves as a business to outreach to when we're trying to talk to potential customers that we've never engaged with before. It's a tool called Vidyard. It's free. Okay, so you can see here it's a free Chrome plugin, and you can see that in this situation, you can see that this lady here is recording a little video of herself. Okay, and basically she's using that to go and sell, or to go and effectively sell herself. So what you could be doing, right, and you can see it here, is you can basically do a 30-second, hey, my name's Rob Magee. I've recently applied for your account executive job. I think I'd be a fantastic candidate for the following 2 or 3 reasons. I'm currently working in an organization called Ingenio and really keen to get your feedback on an interview. Can't wait to meet you. And you can see that type of direct outreach, where you are telling your story, staring straight down the camera, really engaging and exciting someone in terms of your application, you can see the impact that would have immediately. You can imagine that someone like Rob Price at Extreme Push, if he gets that, he says, like, I've got to interview this guy. And he's maybe outreaching to HR or to his recruiter to say, look, I've had this application come in on video. It's come in directly to me, and it's probably come through you too. I want to make sure I speak to this guy. Can you make sure that we get an interview set up? And straight away, you've completely differentiated yourself from your applicant competition, which is so unbelievably important. Okay, so 2 things there, just in terms of a bit of a recap there, really importantly. So the first thing there is using the technology, the free technology that is available to you. It's so unbelievably powerful to help you go and research the hiring manager, and then to be using outreach tools like Vidyard to be able to engage directly with a hiring manager well in advance of an interview. And ultimately, what do we want to go and do? We want to create a sense of anticipation, a sense of expectation about you in advance of your interview, because I guarantee you, when you're in that position versus being cold and completely fresh and new, you'll completely transform your position and your potential in terms of getting hired. We're going to go to questions, folks. So look, just really quickly, as I said right at the beginning, we built Ingenio Learning to help people like you get hired by tech, software, and SaaS organizations. We have a great stat there in terms of our students get hired within 90 days, and a really significant number of them, that being 90%. Here's a little bit about what some of our previous students have said, and they are literally from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all levels of experience, all ages. Really, really important so that you've got some context. And these are some of the organizations and businesses that we have helped people get hired by. Some fantastic names, some of the biggest names in tech, and indeed some very small names of organizations who are very niche players that you might not necessarily know of. Our special gift to you guys today who are tuned in live is a 70% promo discount for our course. And what I say to people here is, think about 30 euros and what is that? What does that mean to you as a price to pay for landing that dream job in that dream organization, working in that dream team? Okay, so I really want to try and get you to kind of resonate with that. We'll send you some information and some details after the call in terms of how you can apply and activate that. We also offer a one-to-one coaching session, and that is specifically for people who've got interviews upcoming. Maybe you're a little low on confidence, maybe you've not interviewed in ages, maybe you're just looking to really kind of tune up or tone up in advance of that. So again, if you want some more information, just type more info in the chat box and we'll come back to you with some info on that.